Yeah. I don't know, really.
There's some door we can be locked, right?
No, anyone else just came in that way. I unlocked it. Welcome to Ordinary Council Meeting 4516 of Hunters Hill Council. Could I ask you to please stand? I would like to acknowledge and show my respect to the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, of elders past, present and emerging.
We thank you, Lord, for the honour of being called by our fellow citizens to this office of honour and trust. Give us grace diligently and honourably, free from private interest or prejudice, to discharge the duties entrusted to us, to the common good and as in your sight, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Please be seated.
Mr Mayor, just at the outset of the meeting, could I please just take a moment on behalf of the staff to sincerely offer our condolences to Councillor Vergara and Councillor Crassoy in regards to the loss of their fathers recently, and our staff send you our very best wishes.
Thank you, General Manager. And I think the council, obviously, speaking on behalf of the council, I can express the same. Proceedings of the council meeting in open session, including all debate and addresses by the public, are recorded and webcast live on council's website for a purpose of facilitating community access. Webcast archives are stored and available on to the public on council's website. The recordings may be disclosed under the provisions of the Government Information Public Access Act of 2009, the GIPA Act. Members of the public attending council meeting may have their image, voice and personal information, including name and address, recorded, publicly broadcast and archived, or as an observer or other interested party. Members of the public consent to the use of their image, voice and personal information. Can I ask councillors, we have an apology from Councillor Quinn, who won't be joining us this evening, although it won't be recorded formally as an apology because we have a late item that was distributed earlier this afternoon, which is going to grant his leave of absence. And just in relation to declarations of interest, I would just note that our minute taker for this evening has declared a potential conflict of interest in item 4.7 and will leave the meeting during the deliberation of that matter. That being the case, can I ask for any other conflicts of interest? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr Mayor, item 4.12. The items within that is 2021-1013-1 and 2022-0063. Non-pecuniary, non-significant interest. It relates to the fact that both those properties abut my backyard. Back fence.
Will you be leaving the meeting for the consideration of that item?
It's only to receive a note, Mr Mayor, but if you wish,
up to you, Councillor. Councillors, any other declarations? I'll declare a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest in item 4.12 as well. I don't deem it significant enough to leave the room, but I know Felicity McCaffrey. I'll be meeting her this Thursday to talk about the garden competition. But as I say, it's not a significant interest. Any other conflicts of interest, councillors? If not, we will move on to item 1, confirmation of minutes of ordinary meeting.
We move
After the minutes, yes. Confirmation of minutes, ordinary meeting 4515 held 19th December 2022. Have I got a mover? Councillor Vergara, second. Councillor Prieston, any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. I'll now put the late item regarding the leave of absence of Councillor Quinn, item L2. Moved. Councillor Williams, seconded. Councillor Crassoy. Any discussion? If not, I'll move it. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. I will now move to item 2.1, Merrill Minute, Hunters Hill residents recognised in the Australia Day 2023 honours list. And I'll read the report. On the 26th of January, the Governor-General of the Commonwealth of Australia, His Excellency Governor the Honourable David Hurley AC, announced 1,047 awards in the Australia Day 2023 honours list. 4 local residents were recognised, 2 were awarded the Medal of the Order of Australia, 1 was appointed an Officer of the Order of Australia, and 1 was appointed a Member of the Order of Australia. Brother Anthony Paul Lloyd of St Joseph's College was awarded the Medal of the Order of Australia for service to secondary education through his roles as Deputy Principal, Teacher, Sports Coach and Spiritual Mentor. Miss Flora Duval was awarded the Medal of Honour, the Medal of the Order of Australia for service to the community through a range of roles, including the Royal Botanic Gardens, Sydney, as well as in garden history as a tour guide in the botany education. Emeritus Professor Jane Latimer was appointed an Officer of the Order of Australia for distinguished service to the tertiary education and research, particularly public health and to women in roles at the University of Sydney, the George Institute of Global Health and Elizabeth Broderick and Company. Dr. Neil Peppett was appointed a Member of the Order of Australia for significant service to dentistry and to tertiary education through the Australian Dental Association New South Wales branch, the Royal Australian College of Dental Surgeons, the Dental Council of New South Wales and Universities of Sydney and Otago, New Zealand. We congratulate the recipients and thank them for their contribution to our community, and attached is the report with all of the supporting documentation. Any speakers? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. I will now move to item 4.1, quarterly budget review as of 31st of December 2022. Councillor Williams.
As we've got speakers tonight, do we?
Do we have, do we know if Ms Hurley is joining in person or via in person? We don't have our speaker for this evening for the in-person. So we just keep moving. Item 4.1, quarterly budget review as of 31st of December 2022 on page 7. Got a mover? Moved, Councillor Crassoy, seconded. Councillor Prieston, any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. Sorry, Councillor Vergara. Yes. Yes.
For you, Mr. Mayor. Is it correct, my reading of the report, to say that without grant income, our operational budget runs at a loss, got a deficit? And if it is, why is that not something to be concerned about?
I can confirm that is the case, but I think through the General Manager to the Director, that's probably something that the staff can fill us in if you wish.
Yes, would you like me to make a specific comment about that? Look, for the purposes of the question for tonight, yes, that is the case, and that has been a continual trend for Hunters Hill Council. Our special rate variation has addressed a lot of those issues. Some of the grants this particular year, we're in a non-ordinary year in the sense that we're doing more capital projects than we've ever done before. So that also does skew the figures. And typically, Hunters Hill Council would only have 1 capital grant per year, but we have a number of projects coming all on once. So that does skew that result, and it makes it look like that we have more capital income than we normally would, capital grant income. The key measures to look at is really the benchmarking table. So when you look at the key performance indicators, they're typically within the OLG benchmarks, and they're really the ones to be focusing on, in particular the operating performance ratio. So over our long-term financial plan, our council will continue to look for other measures to improve our our income sources via fees and charges, operating savings, and so forth. Sorry.
Councillor Vergara, question.
So I did look at the operating performance, and the ratio is that's one of the indicators we don't meet. So it's negative 12.4% and projected to worsen to 13.3%. Again, I ask, why is this not something to be concerned about?
General Manager.
Councillor Vergara, actually, absolutely is something to be worried about. And while it's probably not ideal to be talking about it today in an open council meeting, but I can assure you that this very issue is a very specific agenda item at our strategic work day with our councillors next month. This will be an actual very specific topic that we will be discussing with you.
Councillors, any other discussion? Councillor Williams.
Just a question, Mr. Mayor. The deficit's projected to be $2,422.77 and $5. But we say over here that there's an additional 80,000 being allocated. Is that included in that figure, or do we add the 80,000 of the additional spending on top of that?
Yeah, so look, so the answer to that is the intention with the 80,000 is for that grant income to be received this financial year. One thing I just need to stress upon the fact is the second figure, which is a deficit, is an indicator of grant income. But what we should be looking at these figures as well is our cash position, and the monthly investment report and the unrestricted reserves is really a key measure that we should be looking at, because for want of a better word, I'll call it in plain English, it's our spare cash. So whilst this is an important measure about grant income is still something that we continually rely on for capital projects. So it shouldn't be the sole measure to be looked at, but it is our responsibility to highlight all these items and where our different income sources come from.
Councillors, Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, if I could just add a little bit to the comments so far. In the last term of council, I can recall, in fact, what we thought was going to last, it was July, or in fact it was later, it was the last meeting in October. And at that meeting, we had a proposal, which normally would have come for this council, but the last council had to make up its mind. I was determined that the last council should not impinge on any way on the raising of revenue for this council. So at this point in time, I'd like to thank Councillor Williams and Councillor Crassoy for the support that I got in the debate then, and that we moved to keep the prospect of having a special rate variation alive. That's made a significant difference to the finances, so they could have been worse without that.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Can I also just on a couple of matters, and I assume that the mover and seconder is happy with this. The financial year 2022-33 needs to be amended to 23 in the recommendation. I would just say that vis-a-vis the special rate variation, that won't actually come into effect in terms of the finances until the 23-24 financial year. That's when we'll see the balance of the increase in rate income. So that's not reflected in this budget update. Councillor Vergara makes a very salient point is that we need to be constantly focused on, and the staff are doing a huge amount of work on making sure that we turn around this operational position, because we have an over reliance on our rates revenue. It is a higher reliance than most other LGAs have, and we also have the requirement of getting grant monies so that we can carry out these capital projects. And I think that under the leadership of the General Manager, we've turned a corner in terms of our grant applications and the funding that we're getting through, luckily, but that doesn't mean that we don't have to have a constant desire to get into a positive position in terms of our operations, at least breaking even. Rates revenue is great because we can rely on it, but there has to be a component in our financial position of revenue income generation that's outside of the rates revenue. So that being said, councillors, is there any other discussion? Right of reply, Councillor Crassoy.
Thank you to the council officer for putting the report together, and through the General Manager as well. I'm never shy of saying I hate numbers, but I tried really hard to read this really well, as I do each month. I've always had concerns about our financial position. But I feel like towards the end of the last term of council and since the general manager has come on board at council, I feel very positive about the direction that we're heading into being more financially independent. I think we're all aware that the general manager's working hard on a few projects to try and not just save us money, but actually turn that annual line around. I also know we're not the only council in this position, and so when I look at the councillor understanding finances course back when I first became a councillor, and they did teach us about just this key performance indicators, and I tried to focus on that because it is a bit about more than just the money, although the money is key. So I think it's awesome that we're getting the amount of grant money that we're getting, but with that come more expenses for us as a council as we're rolling out capital works and as we're managing that grant money that comes in. So it costs us more, but in the long run, my gut feeling is it's going to save us and eventually turn a bit of income generation around that doesn't just rely on grants and rates, actually, that we start fees and charges will start picking up in that area. So it is a concern, and I totally agree, but I feel very safe in the hands of the team that we have and in the hands of the general manager with the council that we have to keep working towards turning it around. So thank you for your comprehensive report as always.
Thank you, councillor Crasso. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? Against? That is unanimous. Councillors, we do have our speaker here. I'm in your hands as to whether or not we move item 4.16 up or item move. Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Sanderson. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. We now move to item 4.16, Crown Lands Greater Sydney Crown Land Open Space Activation Program, reallocation of funding to Buffalo Creek Reserve. We have a speaker for this item, Ms. Maureen Hurley. Maureen, you have 5 minutes. Welcome back to council.
Thank you very much.
Always good to have you.
Thank you. I've asked to speak to council today to support the proposal reallocating Buffalo Creek Park funding to Boronia Park for the purpose of resurfacing the existing netball courts, the construction of an additional court, and for the marketing of those courts for multiple court sports. In particular interest is the use of these courts for pickleball. Pickleball is a rapidly growing sport, and locally growth is limited by the lack of court availability. Boronia Park already supports a healthy community of pickleball players. However, participation and growth is limited due to the availability of courts. I would encourage all councillors to support the proposal, and in doing so, you'll be supporting an emerging sport that is ageless, genderless, and inclusive. There's social, physical, and mental wellbeing benefits. Pickleball builds community and increases utilisation of our sporting facilities every day of the week, every day of the year. It also provides sporting options for large sectors of the community that are currently not catered for. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Crassley.
Move it.
Move the motion. Is there a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Vergara. Sorry, Maureen, you can take a seat. We won't keep you on the hot seat any longer. Councillor Crassley, you wish to speak to your motion?
I will just briefly. I'm just thrilled. I was very excited when Maureen first contacted some of the councillors a while back with the pickleball proposal, because I think it's a great emerging sport. And it was certainly the case at the Sport and Rec conference I went to in Melbourne late last year, was that sports like pickleball and disc golf are emerging popular sports that serve a part of our demographic that is a large part of our demographic. So I think that's great. I think the general manager and staff's creative use of the redirection of funding to make sure everyone ends up happy is outstanding. We potentially lost some of the grant money we were just talking about, and now we're going to put it to good use. So I think it's just like a double win there. So congratulations to all round, I think.
Thank you, Councillor Crassoy. Any other speakers? Four? Yep. Yes, Councillor Sanderson.
Yeah, look, I'm absolutely in favour of this. Is a great result. I mean, we had a group stood up very strongly and said we didn't want a dog park, and a group has promoted other ideas, and I think we've got an outstanding result.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Any other discussion? Councillor Vergara, speaking in favour?
Question.
Questions?
Clarification.
Yes.
So the pickleball courts, so it's resurfacing the courts that are there, then there are netball courts which are grass. Are they going to be surface? That's question one. Question two is, are those two things, and I'm in favour of this one, just want to understand it. Are
Clarification.
those two things costing $180,000, and does that seem like a sensible amount, given all of the work that's going to happen at Baronia is only, 37 grand more than that?
I'll hand to the General Manager.
Sorry, not Baronia, Buffalo.
Buffalo. Yeah. Yep.
Thanks for your question, Councillor Vergara. I will get to that in a moment. So the first thing I'd like to say, Councillor, is that I really want to thank our staff who have worked incredibly hard behind the scenes to ensure that we didn't lose this grant funding from the originally proposed dog park over at Tarbin Creek. It hasn't been easy behind the scenes to keep that money. Secondly, in the report, operationally, we probably could have gone and just executed and done these improvements, but we thought it was the right thing to do to bring it back to you tonight just for transparency to get the green light. To go to the heart of your question, Councillor Vergara, so we've actually had, we will have to, if this paper is approved, obviously we'll go through a standard procurement process via tender, but we have had two experts come out and look at the site and give us an indicative view of what that would cost. So in simple terms, the two current bitumen or asphalt courts are in fairly, not dire, but they certainly need to be resurfaced and resealed, because the longer we leave it, the worse they'll get, and that'll cost us more. Secondly, there is currently a grass netball court beside those two existing courts. So yes, a new one would be laid there. No tree loss, nothing like that. It fits perfectly. And then once we've resurfaced the two existing ones and we have the new one, all of those will be multi-line marked, which we've had extensive conversations with, for example, the netball clubs about that, and obviously pickleball. So it delivers us a really, really great outcome for multi-use. And to be candid, we didn't have this money to meet the needs of the growing pickleball demands in our municipality. Hope that answers your question.
Huntersville's fastest growing sport, pickleball.
They're not cheap.
Yeah.
It's a brand new court. So,
Councillors, any other questions? Councillor Vergara.
We're moving this whole motion, which relates to the Buffalo as well. So
Yes.
just some clarifications on that. So the renewal of the half court, isn't that currently a quarter court?
yeah, I struggle when it is referred to as a half court. And just again, for clarity, just so we're crystal clear here, the $100,000 for the basketball court, let's have a debate whether it's a 3-point shooting ring or a half court. It's certainly not a half court, has always been in the budget. So that money has been allocated in the 21-22 budget. For whatever reason, when I arrived, the project hadn't been completed, so it was rolled over into this year's budget. That's not new money, it's already in the budget.
But is the proposal to go from whatever it is now to half a court?
I would sense that when we go out to scope the work, rather than going to half a court, I would envisage that, for those who know basketball, it'll be a shooting ring with a 3-point shooting diameter, for the want of a better word. So it's not the intent to probably do a whole half court.
Councillor Vergara.
Yeah, so two more questions. The new LED lights, are they around the oval at the back of the playground or in the playground area?
Councillor Vergara, I'll refer to, and by the way, I should have said this at the start, I want to welcome our new Director of Infrastructure and Environmental Sustainability, Samantha Urquhart, who has been fantastic in the first few weeks that she's been here, but I'll let Samantha answer that question about the lights, because she went down and scoped it.
Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the LED lights will be surrounding the field, but they will also we'll also have lighting to. We noticed that there's not much lighting near the amenity block, and for safety reasons, we're going to make sure that that's lit as well.
Final question: the cricket pitch, is it just the insert in the field?
Yeah,
Where it is now.
it's in the middle. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillors, any other questions, clarifications? If not, any other speakers for, against, right of reply? I'll put the vote, put the motion. All those in favour? Against, that is carried unanimously. Councillors, I'll now move back to item 4.2, summary of council investments as at 31st December 2022 and 31st January 2023. On page 23 of the paper. Have I got a mover? Moved, Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Prieston. Any discussion? Councillor Williams.
Can I just ask, that in future reports that not only do we get the percentages of income, that we actually get a figure for what dollar value we get in that month for those investments.
Thank you,
I
Councillor. We'll
don't
take
see
that
it
on
there,
board.
Might be there, but
Yep. Thank you, Councillor. Yep. Councillors, any other questions? Councillor Vergara, burning questions today. Yeah, yep.
With all these questions. So through you, Mr. Mayor, the bottom of page 23, the T Corp Medium Term Growth Fund, is referred to, and in the second sentence, it says this is a long-term investment. Are they referring to the same thing?
I will.
Is this the item referred to as the Medium Term Growth Fund in the table? On page 24?
I will pass through to the General Manager and relevant Director.
We have read the report. It's the same one. Yeah, I'll just use different turn of phrase there. Yeah, it is. So the question
Councillor
is,
Vergara.
it's had an average monthly return of 1.49, which is negative. So not a great return. What's the plan to, when it's coming up, or well, it's only got 1 year left?
Maturing, yep.
Yeah, no, very good question. So the sentence, what was meant to make was the fact that this is a longer term investment, so it will have sporadically different returns. So when the investment first started, it actually went quite well past 20%. It then has dipped because it's a combination of property and shares. So the intention at the minimum is to hold it for 3 years, potentially longer actually. So it's a decision point. At 3 years, we'll review it again. And we'll make a determination whether we need to move it into another investment. But generally, these investments have averaged over various studies that we've looked at 7% between that 3 to 7 year mark. So we'll make an assessment again after 3 years.
Thank you. To the Director, Councillors, any other questions? Any other speakers for? Against? Right of reply? If not, I'll put to the vote. All those in favour? Against, that is carried. I'll now move to item 4.3, planned events April to June. On page 27, moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Prieston. Any discussion? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against, that is carried. Item 4.4, Disability Inclusion Action Plan, DIAP. Moved Councillor Sanderson. Seconded Councillor Crassoy.
I move this motion with an amendment, and I'll just pass that up now. Very minor. The amendment is after the word diet at point 1, to say with the amendment.
Sorry, Councillor, can you just hold on while we allow the undertakers to get this correct?
I only just got this.
Thank you, Councillor. Can you read out your recommendation?
Yes, the amendment is that insert after the word this Disability Inclusion Action Plan in parentheses the IAP, insert comma with the amendment that the paragraph containing copyright notice in page 2 of the diet be deleted.
Is the seconder happy with that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's obviously been a great deal of work gone into this. The reason I've asked for this particular amendment is that I have looked at quite a number of the disability inclusion action plans at various councils, including Sydney, Mossman, Willoughby, and others. They have no copyright in there. And it does seem a little bit odd if we look at page 2 of the document, and this is a document which I presume we're not going to print and distribute hard copies of. So I think we would be encouraging the distribution of it electronically, make it as freely as available as possible. So it's, I think it's the wrong jest. You see, most other councils appear not to have copyright included in it, but we remove the words all rights reserved, except as permitted under the Copyright Act 1968. No part of this publication may be reproduced or transmitted in any form or by other means, electronic or mechanical, photocopying, recording, or otherwise, without prior permission of the copyright owner. I think that works against the whole idea of a disability inclusion action plan. The idea is to include people. For that inclusion, they should have access to this excellent document. I'd like to thank the officers who have gone to the trouble of separating our document to make it distinct from the both the Lane Cove and Ride documents. And it's interesting, there's probably a hangover from those days that we do have the copyright in it, because they were the only other two councils I could find that did have a copyright clause in it. I have had a good look at this document. It is clearly superior to what we've had in the past. I'm very supportive of what will come out of it. It sets out what's been achieved and what is yet to be achieved, and I really commend that document.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Any other speakers for? Against?
I'm for, but maybe against first, if that's.
Yes, against? For? Councillor Crassoy. I was about to say, our disability champion will be speaking against it.
That's me, all virtue. Mr. Mayor, it's a great report. It's really good, and Hunters Hill should be proud of what we're going to strive towards. I'm looking forward to the next one, including photos around Hunters Hill of people sitting on beaches in wheelchairs. And I love that some of the photos, like the ramp into the town hall, show what's happening in our suburb. So I'm just looking forward to down the track when we can genuinely show images that we are kicking these goals and that it's happening right here in Huntersville. And then I'll really believe the happy faces on the people in the images. So, but it's a good result. And we as council need to support in our decision making the general manager and the staff in delivering this. It's not just a thing that we stick on the shelf now. We have to be champions of this as well.
Thank you, Councillor Crassoy. Any other speakers against? For? Right to reply, Councillor Sanderson? Not needed. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. I'll now move to item 4.5, councillor briefings and workshops. Got a mover? Moved, Councillor Prieston, seconded, Councillor Crassoy. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 4.6, public gallery attendance protocols for adoption. Moved, Councillor Crassoy, seconded, Councillor Vergara. Any discussion? Councillor Sanderson, sorry, Councillor Crassoy, do you wish to speak for?
Oh,
No, again, speak against?
I'd actually like to move an amendment to this.
Yes.
Similarly brief to the last one. Pass that through.
Councillor Sanderson, if you could just wait, it would be helpful if you've typed these out on Word that you could send them through to the staff, because it does streamline this process somewhat. Because we have to get the staff to type them out, so it does disrupt the meeting flow a little. If you could just hold on.
Next part can be copied out of the document.
Is there a second to? Well, do you know what the motion is, Councillor Williams?
I'm quite happy to second it.
Okay.
it might come into the motion once I see it.
Councillor Sanderson, do you wish to read your motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, what I
Or
propose.
your amendment, I should say, at the moment?
What I propose is that at the end of point 1, we insert comma with the amendments that the spelling of Madeline Street be corrected and the wording below be deleted. The wording that I wish to delete is that no more than 100 people can be admitted to the ground floor of the Council's Administrative Centre at any one time. Note that you may be asked to watch proceedings elsewhere if this limit has been exceeded.
Councillor Sanderson, Councillor Cresswell, are you happy for that to be
Well, I just,
included?
if you'll
Yeah.
forgive me,
Yeah,
I just need to understand the legality of that a little bit.
that's something that I was
Through
going
you.
to ask is, I would imagine that is advice that the general manager has taken about the fire risk of this building, but I'll pass to the general manager.
That's exactly what it is, Mr. Mayor. It's around fire provisions.
Well, that is my argument.
Adds to your argument in respect to.
So in a
Sorry,
nutshell,
so hold on.
wait for councillor.
Councillor Sanderson, you can
Amendment.
move your amendment. It's been seconded. I take it by Councillor Williams.
Yes, my reasons for this amendment is that if we are to limit the number of people who can be admitted to this building at any one time, that number needs to be determined by work health and safety analysis, considering risks such as fire and transmission of disease. I'm not suggesting that no such amendment should or provision should exist. It simply shouldn't exist in a document that is about the control of the gallery and council meetings. Such a limit may vary depending on circumstances such as public health orders, but should apply at all times, not just at council meetings. Again, it is inappropriate to have it in a document about council meetings. To set an arbitrary limit of 100 people in a policy applying to council meetings gives the appearance of this being a control of political communication. Clearly, 100 people cannot fit into our gallery, but we have meetings, notably one in April 2021, when there were about 60 people addressed council. Some of these addresses were remote or read by staff, but many others attended to observe proceedings. Under such circumstances, attendees were able to observe proceedings from the town hall and enter the chamber for their address and be present while the item they had addressed council about was considered. Attending council meeting in person adds many dimensions to the communication experience of observing a meeting remotely online. I was a keen student of constitutional law, and I admire the work done by successive high courts, from those of Sir Anthony Mason through to those of our current Chief Justice, Susan Keffel, who AC, particularly in their crafting of the law, the implied constitutional freedom of political communication.
Sorry, excuse me, councillor Sanderson. Sorry to
Point of order. Councillor
Point of
Cresswell.
order, or actually point of clarification before councillor Sanderson continues. I think there's something in our code of meeting practice about putting motions or amendments that are not legal. And so I do just want to clarify again through you, Mr. Mayor, is it legal for us to have more than 100 people? Because I just want to save councillor Sanderson time and breath if it's not.
So,
General Manager.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the reason for this clause is around the safe evacuation in a fire. So that's why, so just to be clear, it's obviously not including the town hall. It's just within the chambers in this area here. And Councillor Sanderson, you may recall that I can't remember the exact mark, but we did have 50 people here the night of the Lloyd paper. And while there's two things here, while there was no specific protocols then around COVID, I was actually a bit nervous with how close people were, like it was really crammed in. But the number one thing here is that we've taken advice from our own staff member who goes out and does inspections pertaining to fire, right? So if we've got more than 100 people here and we've got to evacuate safely and properly, we shouldn't have more than 100 people here. That's why it's in there.
Councillor Preston, have you got a question or a?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, and
No.
the intent would be that if we had,
Councillor Sanderson, please.
if we had more than 100 here, councillor Sanderson, we would set up an alternative with TVs and that in the town hall as an overflow, so to speak.
That answers the question. That the heart of that, I guess, is given we are not allowed to pass motions that are unlawful, would you see this as being unlawful based on the makeup of this building and fire safety potentially taking precedence?
I wouldn't go to the extent of saying unlawful, Mr. Mayor. All I can say with confidence is this is the advice from our expert officer who goes out and does these inspections.
Okay.
In regards to our fire drills.
Councillor Sanderson.
And so just to clarify again, sorry, councillor Sanders, because I just don't want to waste your time if we're not, so just to clarify again, I know you're the legal expert, but I need to hear it from you. What you're saying here is if we can't fit 100 here,
yes,
we would probably relocate them into the hall where they could watch proceedings on a screen.
So,
which we have done before.
Which we have done before.
Yeah.
And that's for occupational health and safety reasons.
Correct. Only to fire evacuation.
Okay.
Councillor Sanderson.
Well, I don't know why I was interrupted. I mean, points of order are supposed to be handled directly rather than involve over debate.
Councillor Sanderson, that the question was entirely legitimate. Councillor Sanderson, please don't. Councillor Sanderson, sit. Please take a seat. Points of order, which I did not rule out of order, about the legality of a motion are completely legitimate. Please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With respect to the number 100, I think if you look at the document, it refers to 100 in the lower ground or the ground floor of the building. It doesn't refer to them being in the chamber. And as I said before, that sort of restriction belongs in work health and safety documents. They should be properly assessed, as I've already stated, and placed in the appropriate work health and safety document. They do not belong in a document that is about the numbers and conduct of people who come and sit in our gallery. As I started to say, I was a keen student of constitutional law. I have worked at successive high courts, from that of Sir Anthony Mason to the court of our current Chief Justice, Susan Careful, particularly in their crafting of the law of implied constitutional freedom of political communication. This implied freedom doesn't grant individual rights. It is a freedom from laws that unreasonably burden members of the community in communication about political and government matters. And it has been applied at local government level. The case I note there would be Attorney General South Australia and Corporation of Adelaide City. These days, the application of this law follows tests set out in a joint judgment by Chief Justice French, Justices Kiefel, Bell and Keane in McCloy versus McCloy and New South Wales, a 2015 High Court case, where interestingly, Mr. McCloy, as he was then, as a former Lord Mayor of Newcastle, was a property developer, and he took up issue with the freedom of the implied freedom of political discussion because he was prevented donating money for election campaigns. Fortunately, in that case, the High Court ruled that the law did not impugn the well, there wasn't reason for that the law could not impugn that particular right in that case. If these tests are applied, the first inquiry is whether a law.
Councillor Preston.
Relevance. No one's suggesting that we're trying to create an opaque.
Councillor Sanderson is.
Yeah.
Councillors, we just have a bit of decorum. Councillor Sanderson.
Look, I'll get back to what I've got written here. Thank you. If these tests are applied, the first inquiry is whether the law or provision effectively burdens this freedom in its terms, operation, or effect. I would suggest limiting the number of people who can be admitted to the ground floor of the building, and that is the wording of what is in the paper, whether attending council meetings or not, is an arbitrary number of 100. Now, we've now heard that that is intended to be to the chamber, not to the building. So if this motion is going to pass, that needs to be amended. So I would suggest that that sort of restriction will burden the freedom of anyone who wishes to attend a meeting and is excluded from this by this provision. Even if the second inquiry finds that the purpose of the provision and the means adopted to achieve that purpose are legitimate, in the sense that they are compatible with the maintenance of constitutionally prescribed system of representative government, it is still necessary to consider the three-stage proportionality test set out in McCloy. As to whether the law is justified as suitable, necessary, and adequate and balanced. As the policy serves to brief, as a brief, and this is here I quote from the policy itself, as the policy serves as a brief reminder to those sitting in the gallery of their respective obligations when attending open council meetings in person, and because of the limited size of the gallery, the provision limiting numbers in the ground floor of the building will have little impact on the numbers of people in the gallery or their behaviour. The provision limiting numbers would suggest it is not suitable. It has, as it has little rational connection to the purpose of the policy. As the provision limiting attendance numbers effectively burdens the freedom of political communication, without contribution to the purpose of the policy, it hardly can be necessary and adequate in its balance. It may be necessary in terms of the work health and safety issues. It therefore belongs in a work health and safety document that can operate in parallel with this policy. And I would welcome if we do have a provision where if the attendance at meetings exceeds the number, we're able to move to the chamber. I'm quite sure that this matter won't be decided by the High Court. Well, that is an understatement. Thank you for your appreciation of my humour, Councillor Preston. However, the council, as a council, we should be sure our policies do not offend the implied constitutional freedom of political communication, as I believe this limitation does. As a firm advocate of freedom of speech, I will not support this policy while limiting attendance numbers are retained.
Councillor Sanderson, thank you, Councillor Sanderson. I might also remind councillors of their time limit obligations under the Code of Meeting Practice, but any other speakers against the amendment? Councillor Preston.
I'll speak against the amendment, but foreshadow an amendment. Can I do that?
Yes, you can foreshadow an amendment to the original motion.
Right.
Should this fail?
Okay. Should I wait then?
You can do it now if you like. Yeah.
I think everyone agrees with what you're saying, Councillor Sanderson, in principle, but I think there's a better way of doing it. And I suspect that Councillor Vergara has a better drafted legalistic way of saying what I'm pretty much about to say. So instead of point 3 under the expectations and responsibilities section of
Sorry,
policy.
Councillor.
Oh,
It's just okay. Yes, sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry, this is a foreshadowed amendment.
Amendment, yeah. Okay, once the legal maximum building occupancy limit in respect of council's administrative centre, the capital A, capital C, is reached, you may be asked to watch proceedings elsewhere, and I might add to that. What's going on now? In brackets after the word limit, put and for the avoidance of doubt, in compliance with all work health and safety regulation. Is it?
Anyway,
There's too many lawyers in the room. Okay, councillor Preston, would you like to speak against the amendment? That councillor Sanderson's amendment?
Yes, I can. I agree with you in principle, councillor Sanderson, and I think everyone does. We're all trying to allow our community to come and attend meetings and listen to what's being said and decided at council meetings. But I just think that this is a bit semantic, because 100 is not an arbitrary number as you've described. It's a number that's been drafted in consultation with the experts, as the general manager has described to us. So I think we should adhere to those codes and adhere to the advice of those experts that we employ at the council.
Thank you, councillor Preston. Any other speakers for the amendment? Councillor,
Just a question.
sorry. Yes,
Sorry, for
councillor.
the foreshadowed amendment? Or?
No, we are dealing with councillor Sanderson's amendment. Councillor Preston has foreshadowed, were this to fail, she would be foreshadowing an amendment to the effect of what's written up on the screen. Councillor Williams, speaking for the motion, for the amendment.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The explanation given by Councillor Sanderson makes a lot of sense to me, and the fact that it's not necessary in this document, it should be removed. We need to keep this forum of a council meeting as available as possible to as many people as possible, and this document should be about how they interact with council, not about building codes or health and safety issues. So it's neater just to remove it totally. And if you want to come back later on with a limit for the building based on fact, there's no, it's a value judgment from what I can gather from a staff member. There's no evidence here that it's based on a particular building code or a particular health and safety requirement. So I'd be much more comfortable to leave it out. And then if it is something that relates to whatever the code, for it to be brought back to council as a separate issue.
Thank you, councillor. Any speakers against? Councillor Begara?
the point of, it's a matter of plain English, the point of the paragraph is not to set a limit, it's to let people know, give them notice that if the limit is reached, whatever it is, that they may be asked to watch proceedings elsewhere.
You're talking about the foreshadowed amendment now.
So, as drafted,
So we're dealing with councillor
I'm
Sanderson's.
speaking against the amendment because as drafted, all it does is let people know, this in the courteous saying, if the building, if the maximum is reached, whatever it is, you may be asked to watch proceedings elsewhere. So it's just giving our community people that attend notice of what will happen in that really unlikely event. It's not setting the limit, it's not saying we'll enforce it, it's not saying anything about the law, it's a courtesy about the protocol if that situation arises. So that's why I speak against the amendment.
Thank you, councillor. Any other speakers for or against? If not, rather reply, councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't really believe the number 100 should be in there. If there's going to be anything to deal with this in this policy, it should just be simply a reminder that the numbers in the building are limited under work health and safety policies, and that they may apply if too many people show up.
Yeah.
But I think it is wrong to have a provision which is effectively a work health and safety policy in a document which is about the conduct of meetings as far as the attendance in the gallery and how that is handled and touches on, I guess, the behaviour of people in the gallery. So I still believe the neatest way to deal with this is to have the appropriate numbers in a work health and safety policy, and the provision that I'm suggesting completely removed from this document.
Thank you, councillor Sanderson. I'll now put the amendment, the original amendment. All those in favour? Against? That is lost. There is a foreshadowed amendment. Is there a seconder? Councillor Crassoy, you're happy to include were you happy to include that into the motion?
Did I put the original motion? I've lost track.
No, it was put by Councillor Crassoy, seconded Councillor Vergara.
Oh, I can.
Yeah.
Can I please amend, Mr. Mayor, the foreshadowed motion slightly?
Why don't you suggest to Councillor Crassoy an amendment, and we'll see if the mover and seconder, yeah.
All we're trying to do is really just get the right outcome to make it a safe place for our community to come and represent their views to council and hear their council representing them. So I think what we're all trying to achieve is happening. So what's written there that Councillor Preston and Vigara came up with, and all that I would just tweak a tiny bit is that where it says compliance with all work, health and safety legislation, that we perhaps say compliance with public health and building code requirements.
Okay.
I assume the mover of the amendment is happy with that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and the mover and seconder are happy with that.
So,
We might be getting somewhere then.
With lowercase.
Not all applicable legislation.
Yeah, with all.
sure,
Yeah.
all applicable legislation.
There you go.
It's public
applicable.
health legislation though. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, that now becomes
No, just with all applicable legislation.
that becomes the motion, if the mover and seconder are happy with it. The suggestion's been made that we say legislation and regulations.
Thank you.
Yes,
Yes.
you happy with that?
Thank you.
Yeah, happy with that, seconder?
Thank you.
Okay, that has become the motion and is on the floor. Councillor Crassoy.
Ever so briefly, I'll just add to that now that it's the motion, is that the reason it's important, that I believe it's important that is in there, is because when people register to speak to council and they receive the information, they're aware before they come of what may happen, and they're not going to be disappointed on the night when they come to the door. So I think it's relevant that it's there. Of course, it should be in our other policies as well, but I just think it's the more information we give our community when they come to council, the more prepared they are and the less disappointed they could potentially be. So Councillor Sanders, I appreciate what you were trying to say to remove that 100 and to remove that confusion about it being the administration area or the hall, but I think this tries to tidy that up, and I believe that the general manager, staff and all the councillors want to do everything we can to make it as possible for our community to speak to us. This sort of request for a little bit of a look at this came as a result of a particular meeting where I know I was, and I won't speak for any other councillors, but I do know other councillors were heckled from the floor, which is diabolical, quite frankly, because we're elected by our community to do our best work on their behalf. So I'm not made of steel and it hurts. And so I guess I feel a little comfortable knowing that when people come in to talk with us, because we're all meant to be here working together, they understand that we as councillors have a code of conduct that we abide by, and that we respectfully hope that they will do so as well. And I think we'll have better conversations as a result. So anyway, thank you very much to the staff.
Thank you, Councillor Crassoy. Well said. Any speakers against? Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, just briefly, I don't know that we've covered everything in what is proposed to be inserted into the motion. We've spoken about legislation and regulation. I'd strongly suggest that you also suggest include their policy. I mean, this is a policy itself.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Any other speakers for? Against? Right to reply, Councillor Crassoy. If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. I now move to item 4.7, administration of elections. That
was an amendment, wasn't it?
No, that was the motion. I'll just give Ashu the moment to vacate the meeting. Councillors, item 4.7, administration of elections. Have I got a mover? Move Councillor Crassoy, seconded Councillor Williams. Any speakers for? Against Councillor Sanderson?
For, Mr. Mayor.
For? Yep.
Yes, look, briefly, I did have another question. I'll ask that later. But in fact, no, what I'll do is ask the question at this point in time, the bite of cherry. one of the things in the recommendations, point 3, about constitutional referendums. Could I ask the question as to whether there are any constitutional referendums being considered at the present time, or is this just provision just in case?
Councillor Sanderson, that would be relating to referendums of Hunters Hill and
Right.
yeah, not constitutional referendums as in
They are
federal
referred to,
referendums.
even though they're local government, they are referred to as constitutional referendums.
Okay, there are none on the floor, no, unless council proposes one.
So then that is a provision that's here just in case there are.
Yes, I would have thought so.
Thank you.
I think that the staff were just being thorough.
Okay, good, fine, happy with that. One of the points that I'd made that isn't made in the report, one of the great advantages of having the Electoral Commission hold elections is that it means all that historical information about election results is there in the one place. And I've spoken about the importance of keeping historical records in the past, and equally that would apply in this case. I strongly support the appointment of the Electoral Commission.
Thank you, councillor Sanderson. Any other speakers for, against?
I'd ask a brief question.
Yes,
Thank
councillor
you.
Cresswell.
Does council have, can I remain seating to ask a question?
You may. Yes.
Does council have any leverage over the management of signage at election time around polling booths?
I'll defer to the general manager, but usually the commission, if they're running an election, is given oversight of those sorts of things, and they have different rules. Obviously, New South Wales Commission's different rules to the federal commission, but
Councillor Cresswell,
I'll pass to the GM.
with your blessing, rather than answer that on the floor tonight, but I'm happy to take that question under advisory and circulate an email that responds to that question.
Thank you. Yes, I'd appreciate that. And if needed, if it's possible for us to have clearer regulation of safety
Mhm.
and visibility of for traffic and pedestrians, then trying to have some say over that.
Thank you, councillor
Not to
Cresswell.
mention sustainability.
Any other questions or clarifications? Any speakers against, for, right of reply? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, against, is carried.
This is our election. I just need to.
Yeah. Sorry, we just get issue back to minute take. Councillors, item 4.8, draft media policy. Any moved? Councillor Cresswell seconded. Councillor Vergara, any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, against, that is carried. 4.9, council interaction with staff policy for exhibition. Got a mover? Councillor Vergara, seconded. Councillor Cresswell, any speakers for, against?
Mr. Mayor, I've got a very minor amendment, just to make it
Yes.
consistent with other motions tonight, that we insert after at the end of point 2, after the see attachment 1 in parentheses, for public exhibition.
Okay, mover seconder, you happy with that? Yes. Any other speakers for, against? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, against, that is carried. Now move to item 4.10, council related development application conflict of interest policy for exhibition. Moved, councillor Cresswell, seconded. Councillor Vergara, any discussion? No, councillor Cresswell, speakers against?
Not a speaker against. Again, I would like to put a very minor amendment. I haven't bothered to type this one out, but there is, I did notice a couple of minor errors because what's happened. Oh, sorry, I won't go into the argument yet. But what I will do, noting that there are minor errors, that we insert at the start of point 3, after rectifying minor errors, and after point 2, we insert for public exhibition.
Councillor Sanderson, I would imagine that if you have suggested errors, I'm not saying that they are errors, they might not be, but if you do, once it goes out for exhibition, why wouldn't you collate those and send them to staff for inclusion in the eventual report?
Look, Mr. Mayor, I've spent a lot of time with this paper, you can appreciate, and I just thought this is the easy way. But I can point out the errors very easily.
I would imagine that the chamber is probably not the forum to do that. I think that if you have errors in the report, that it might be best to collate them and send them to the general manager so that he can amend the report.
I didn't pick them up until today, in fact.
But what I'm saying is, whilst it's on exhibition and it is being amended, I think it would probably save us time and energy in the chamber if you just compile those and send them to the general manager so that he can make those amendments to the report, unless they're substantial in terms of the content.
It's just
or are they grammatical? Numbering. Well, if they're numbering errors, then I think that you can probably just send them to the general manager and he can amend
when it comes back.
when it comes back. I mean, that seems like a much simpler way to do it than to raise it as a motion of council. Are you comfortable with that?
Okay, fine. So we just accept the amendment for public that.
Yes. Yep. No, happy for that to be included. And I think the mover and seconder, are you happy with that? Yes. So just delete the first 4 words of item 3, if you could. And then Councillor Sanderson's going to send those amendments through and the general manager will make them if they're numerical. Any other discussion? Councillors Williams speaking against?
No. Question.
For? Question.
In the document, it's referred to external third parties. I was just wondering if I could have an example of who they might be.
I'll pass through to the general manager or the reporting officer. With your arm.
External third parties could be like maritime or roads or like other agencies that we've referred the applications to, like as integrated development.
Councillor Williams.
Just on the issue raised by Councillor Sanders, if I can ask a question. Through you to the general manager, I guess, wouldn't it be beneficial to make those changes before it goes on public exhibition to maintain council's credibility and thoroughness in its reports it puts to the
Yeah. Thank you, councillor. I would imagine that if they're down to numerical changes, that if councillor Sanderson can send them through, they can be amended before it does go out. If they're not substantial policy changes, then I don't see a problem with that. General manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I will contact you tomorrow, Councillor Sanderson. It's a bit hard for me to respond when I don't even know what the errors we're talking about. So if councillors are happy, I'm happy to get in contact with Councillor Sanderson tomorrow and do the tweaks to the minor errors that he refers to, which I don't know what they are, before we send it out to public exhibition.
Councillors, any other speakers for, against? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, against, that is carried. I move now to item 4.11, development applications determined by the DCU in December 2022 and January 2023. Councillor Williams moved, seconded Councillor Sanderson. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, against, that is carried. Item 4.12, Councillor Williams, you can leave. Item 4.12, we're getting very close to not having quorum. Development applications determined under delegated authority in December 2022 and January 2023. Is there a mover? Move Councillor Prasoy, seconded Councillor Vergara. Any discussion? Councillor Sanderson.
I just have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
At the bottom of page 174 of the business paper, relating to development application 2010/1105, it doesn't actually say that it's a application for modification for this of consent. But so on the face of it, even though despite the date, it appears as though it's a first off application. How's it come that the landscape this area is in consent?
I will hand through via the general manager, I assume, to the officer.
Yes, through the general manager, it's a part 3. Are you talking about 15 Hunter Street,
Yeah.
councillor? Yeah, it's a part 3. So if the basically if the landscape area was short and the original application would require a step 1 as previously, it was a 2010 application. So clause 4.6 now. So the original application would have been dealt with under a step 1, number 1. Basically requested a variation to the statutory clause of the LEP, and then the subsequent amendments were done up to number 3 now. So that's great. So.
Thank you. Councillors, any other questions, clarifications? Speaking for, against? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That carried unanimously.
Excuse me, Henny, could you just get Councillor Williams, please?
I will move to item 4.13, development applications determined by the local paying panel in December 2022 and January 2023. Moved, Councillor Crassoy, seconded. Councillor Vergara, I was about to second that one. Councillor Crassoy, speaking for, against. Councillor Vergara.
Some questions.
Questions? Yes.
On page 192, development application 2022-0104. Big park removal of 21 trees, DA.
Mhm.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the General Manager. Given your involvement in this DA, can you explain? I've got a 3-part question. Number 1, explain how and why did this go from a recommended approval to a refusal? Number 2, is the panel's recommendation in relation to the proposed amenities block a proper consideration for the LPP on such an application? Number 3, did something happen at the meeting that the panel, which admits that it received no details about any drainage work, could properly be concerned that drainage work would result in the removal of trees?
Through me to the General Manager. General Manager.
Well, Councillor Vergara, respectfully, I can't make any comment on the decisions of the panel. That's something for the panel to make their decision on. It would be inappropriate for me to make an assessment of why they came to the decision that they have come to. And in regards to the drainage question, there was information provided, and under the review, there will be more extensive documentation provided as panel. But what I will say is that the independent arborist strongly recommended that the application be approved. So I can't comment why the panel went the way they did.
Councillor Vergara. Thank you. So we've got a speaker for, against. Any other questions? If not, councillors, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Item 4.14, report on legal matters, January 2023. Councillor, thank you, Councillor Vergara, speeding me up. Moved. Councillor Williams, seconded. Councillor Sanderson, any questions? Councillor Vergara, you're on fire tonight.
At the time, the papers, the 3 of the 4 class 1 applications.
Yes.
Are in respect of deemed refusal. That means we haven't complied with the statutory timeframe for decisions. Of the 3, only 1 indicates that there are significant differences. Council and the applicants. So my question is, and I can see it comes later in our report on progress, is there still a plan to ensure we have as few deemed refusals as possible, which lead to land and environment court proceedings, given one, the cost of those proceedings in terms of solicitors, and two, the cost on internal staff resources.
General Manager.
Through the
Through-
mayor,
through-
through the general manager. With the deemed refusals that we received, 3 out of the 4, basically they went to court before we even started assessment. Within the 40 days, they just took it to court. They didn't give us the opportunity to make an assessment yet. So they sort of knew that where they were going when they lodged the application.
But that's
Councillor Vergara.
we're not within, is that right? Is it right? Am I understanding you right that we're not well within the 40 days where we're not even starting assessments within the statutory timeframe?
No, we are starting, we have started the assessment, but we haven't finalised this because 2 weeks of that is notification period. And it comes in with administration and it gets notified to the other departments for their feedback. But the applicants on these applications, specific applications, knew that they wanted to go to court because they were going to get lots of objections. So they just decided to take it to court. It's like 39 Alexandra, for example, 26 Farnell. That's
Mr. Mayor, just the
Yes.
question is there a plan to speed up the performance and service we give to residents on DA applications?
General Manager or Reporting Officer.
Well, we do the best we can in the time limits that we have in terms of heritage items and, going to Conservation Advisory Panel. And with those type of applications, we do the best we can within a 2 to 3 month turnaround. But with these type of applications, because they've already set their mind that they will go to court from the start. They just have to lodge it and then go to court. Well, there's not really much we can do in terms of the assessment process. I mean, like in that 40 days, to provide a determination, but they basically want to go to court. I mean, council has to wait till we get with a notification period of 2 weeks or 30 days. We have to wait till we get all the submissions from the residents and hear them out. And also during that period, it takes time for the landscape department to assess the application, conservation advisory panels to look at it, the heritage department, engineering, and any external departments to look at, and also environment, health and building surveying. So it's a bit within 40 days, we can't get complex applications like that out, like 39 Alexandra. The 26 Farnell type of applications.
Thank you, Councillor Vergara. Yes.
39 Alexandra is the one that has significant differences. I can understand how that would go.
Yeah.
But there are 2 there that are going to settle at the conciliation conference. So arguably on the face of it, not complex. 40 days is the statutory timeframe. I'm hearing you say it's just impossible to meet, but if it's that timeframe, I'm going to say there's a basis for it, and other councils are probably meeting it. So I accept it's hard. Everyone's got competing authorities, but priorities.
Sure.
But I'm just hearing no plan, and that's definitely something I know that lots of us heard during the election about the slowness of that process. So that's just a comment.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, any other discussion? For, against, right of reply? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, that is carried unanimously. Report on the status of LEP-DCP review. Item 4.15. Moved Councillor Crassoy, seconded Councillor Vergara. Any discussion? Councillor Sanderson, speaking for.
Mr. Mayor, at this stage I have a question. There is a table on page 198 of the business paper. One of the items is not showing the date for the proposed lodgement of the planning proposal. I presume that would then be off or beyond the time in that chart.
To the reporting officer.
Just
This is through the
hasn't come through my copy. That's why it's not there. Yes, through the general manager. Sorry, you're referring to the end date.
Well, no, there's a table on
Yes.
page 198 of the business paper.
Yeah, August. Yeah.
It's got a number of items listed in it.
Yes.
It doesn't say anything about a proposed date for the lodgement of a planning proposal. So I presume that's well beyond the dates given in the in that table?
That's actually, you know, I mean, basically at the moment we are actually working towards that, we are doing a consultation with the community, with the legal representatives, and also within the community, other community
It's just a tape.
representatives, and we will get that information and then incorporate it as part of our scoping.
Thank you.
Proposal.
Any other questions, councillor Sanderson?
I'd just like to make a few comments on it if I could.
Speaking for?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
Look, one of the things I prefer to is an outstanding briefing that we received from our former legal advocate, Mr. John Cole. And unfortunately, I can't find the notes I took at the time of that briefing, but it was an absolutely outstanding briefing. And one of the big points he made was the better defining the character of Hunter's Hill. One of the things that will come up later, one of the other items, is that the importance of the character statements. One of the things I've noticed in work when Cap was having a look at this item is that the former DCP number 15, this is for consolidated DCPs, went into quite a lot of detail in the explanation of the character of Hunter's Hill. So I get a little bit concerned when reports are telling us that this is about simplifying the DCP. We can make the DC easier to follow by including some of the details, and a lot of that detail I expect could come out of the former DCP number 15. So that's something I would strongly advocate.
Thank you, councillor Sanderson. Speakers against? Councillor.
Sorry. I was just going to say to Councillor Sanderson that an appointment has been made for the strategic planner as part of the consultation to sit down with Mr. Cole. So that's part of the process.
Councillor Williams. Speaking for, against?
Just some questions.
Yes.
Or comments. On the bottom of page 198, there's a reference to consultation at the Conservation Advisory Panel meeting. It says comprehensive overview. I would like comprehensive. It wasn't comprehensive. It was just a very quick slideshow. On the next page, we talk about a public meeting on the 15th of March, or community meeting, as it's referred to. As a councillor and as the community, are we going to be told what's on the agenda so that we can prepare for it and the community can understand what they're coming for?
General Manager.
Mr. Mayor, I might get Annie to respond to that question, because obviously the community interaction piece is hers.
Thank you, General Manager. Councillor, we are still receiving feedback from our community. To date, as of today, we have around 90 people who've registered to attend the workshop on the 15th. So we have a very comprehensive list of items to get through before we finalise the agenda, which will come through by Friday of this week. So we will circulate that to obviously the councillors, the community who are coming along, and the broader community as well.
Thank you, Annie. Councillor Williams. Is question, or are you speaking to the motion?
Well, it's a question, but it alludes to the comment made by Councillor Sanders. In the next paragraph, the word simplify is used in the DCP. I think the better term is clarify, because we're not simplifying it as clarifying. Another question is that there's some confusion. We hear the term, it's just a housekeeping process, but we then talk about strengthening. So could I get a bit of clarity as to what the purpose of this process is? I would hope it's strengthening, but I constantly get the comment that it's housekeeping.
Through the general to the General Manager, but I would imagine, Councillor Williams, that you are as up to date on the requirements for us to do a review of the LEP DCP, which is a requirement that the state government set. We have sought several extensions to that, as I understand it. We are required to undertake the health check in inverted commas, and as we discussed in our briefing with Mr. Cole, that is about tightening up, things that have in the past got council into situations where they have found themselves in court, for example. But I'll ask the General Manager to respond to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Williams, I think the first thing I'd say is that it's actually difficult to answer that question until you get feedback. That's the whole idea of getting broad consultation with both the community, GAP, other stakeholders. So I'm not going to try and foreshadow what that's going to be. That's why we go through the process of that interaction. But the word, we could talk a lot about wordsmithing, but the word that I would think is we're trying to enhance it. And when you do a review of any document, you ultimately want to make it better. And whether enhancing is that it's housekeeping, it's significant change, which I would tend to think it wouldn't be, but I'm not going to get hung up on selections of words. I think we've got to go through the process, but ultimately you want to make the document better to enhance it.
Councillor Williams.
That's good to hear, Mr. Mayor, because the word housekeeping does imply other approaches to it, and I think we should keep an open mind. The last thing is the state government's requiring us to put a new zoning in a B1. The implications of that, and I believe that's going to be brought in April. The implications of that, are they going to be discussed at this forum or part of the DCP, the LEP review, or is it just a fait accompli? Because there have been some significant concerns raised with me as to how that would be impacting on some sites in Huttersville.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I think we can probably take that on notice that
we'll raise that in our discussions over the next few days with our strategic planner and bring him aware to that it's been raised tonight.
Thank you. Councillors, any other questions, clarifications? Any speakers against? Any speakers for? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, that is unanimous. I move to item 4.17, delivery program and operational program progress report. Moved Councillor Crassoy, seconded Councillor Prieston. We might just invite
if there's any questions,
Goodman to come up to the.
There may not be any questions, but I don't know. But if there is,
councillors, Councillor Crassoy, speaker 4.
Thank you.
Sorry, Annie.
We need a longer front table.
I just want to start on this first page, which is fabulous, and thank the director for the work that's been done to put this report together with your team, because you make it accessible to councillors, and as a councillor I've now read a few of these in my short time as a councillor, and I have to say that, gosh, when I first became a councillor, this would have made it so much easier for me to understand our strategic rollout. So thank you for that page for a start, but then thank you for the really clear report. It was very concise and easy to read, to see where we're at and to see where we're hopefully going. And with that, I would say thank you to the General Manager and staff who have been kicking some knockout goals on this delivery. And I know that others will comment that, they'd like to see more green than blue and more yellow than red, whatever you want to call it. There are so many things in here that I've been watching and hoping to see moving forward, and they're moving forward under the direction of our General Manager. And, we were part, as a council, we were part of developing this strategic plan. And so I'm quite heartened and proud to know that it's moving at the pace it's going. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crassoy. Any speakers against? Or questions, Councillor?
I've got a whole lot of questions.
Yes.
I don't really want to go through them now.
Perhaps they can be sent to the director, unless there's some very burning questions.
the only one that I'd probably, or one of the ones that I'd probably highlight now is the Blaisville painting process. Oh, this is on page 227. Or 226. I just sort of wouldn't like people to get the impression that we're just scoping this thing out. This has been a 60-year project. And for some reason it fell off the priority list. It's now being reactivated, but it's not about starting the process, it's about finishing the process. And scoping, to me, I think it's probably not that appropriate. Just while I'm on my feet, I'll just raise the perennial problem of street sweeping. We've got a 3-week program, but I constantly see the street sweeper come along streets that are chock-a-block full of cars. And I've even seen him on numerous occasions trying to negotiate the street with garbage bins in it. I think we need to have a close look what we're doing with street sweeping and make sure that it's optimised. We were going to do some blowing under cars to make sure that we were getting in high leaf areas the danger of cars being impacted by fire or whatever with a whole lot of leaves on them. I don't see any of that being reported there. So yes, I've got probably a dozen questions.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any other Councillor Prieston speaking for?
Yes.
Yes.
I would like to echo Councillor Cassaway's comments about the preparation of this report. Annie, I think this is pretty much exactly what we discussed as a council in our very first strategy session about 12 months ago now. We wanted a really clear way of being able to track where we were, missing or behind schedule on some things, and the things that we really wanted to prioritise and progress as a new term of council. And this is a really easy way to digest all of that and, to hold each other accountable. So you might see where as council we can see now where things aren't progressing, and we can, I can send you an email and we can nut out any issues that, or roadblocks that you might be experiencing in the development of that particular project or that particular, strategic objectives. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Prieston. Any other speakers against? For? Right to reply, Councillor Cresswell.
No, I think I waxed lyrical enough.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. I will just say very well compiled. Thank you, Annie, and to the staff that have worked very hard on this, and to the General Manager, of course. I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Against? That is unanimous. Yes. Now, 4.18 minutes of the Huntersville Livers and Friendship Committee meeting and AGM held 8th February 2023. Councillor Williams moved, seconded Councillor Sanderson. Any discussion?
Just to highlight that this year is a special acknowledgement of the relationship at Levesenay is celebrating the 35 years of the relationship, and there are a few councillors attending and also some private citizens. So just letting council know that it is a big event this year.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any other discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. 4.19 minutes of CAP held 14 December 2022. Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Sanderson. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. 4.20 disclosure of interest returns councillors and designated persons. Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Prieston. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Item 4.21, delegation to Mayor and General Manager during the Christmas New Year period 2022-2023. Councillor Williams moved, seconded Councillor Prieston. Any discussion? Councillor Vergara, you have read this paper thoroughly.
I'm just going to call this the Seinfeld paper.
Yes.
It's a paper about nothing.
Always very helpful, councillors. Councillor Cresswell.
I am just going to thank the director for stepping into the general manager's role during Christmas.
Yes,
And hoping that the general manager and mayor had adequate breaks over the season. And there were very few reasons to email the director at the time, but I appreciated her swift response and dealing with a couple of matters that did arise. So thank you.
I'll echo those comments. I know that you sorted out some difficult situations vis-a-vis New Year's for us, which was brilliant, very speedy. So thank you. Councillors, any more discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Item 4.22, National General Assembly of Local Government. We've got a mover. Move, Councillor Williams, seconded. Councillor Vergara, any discussion? If not, Councillor Vergara.
I just want to encourage the mayor and general manager, when you attend this, to convey our interest in programs and working cooperatively with all levels of government and agencies to progress sustainability and resilience in our community.
We can certainly do that. Any other discussion, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. I'll now move to the late item 4L.1. Upgrade to Gladesville Reserve. We didn't receive a request to speak on this matter, but I have received a request at the meeting tonight for Alistair Sharp to speak on this matter. I do note, Dr. Sharp, there was a gentleman that did make an application to speak that was refused tonight. So if you could try and get your applications in on time, that would be helpful.
In future, I'll put them through customer service rather than
Thank you.
putting them online.
Thank you.
You want a motion to allow?
If you think it's necessary, otherwise I'm sure that the speakers are at my discretion, councillor. Councillor, Dr. Sharp, you have 5 minutes.
This item seeks to overturn the decision of council on the 19th of December to assess options 2 and 3 to convert the playing surface of Gladesville Reserve to a state-of-the-art multi-purpose natural turf field. The funding for this project was always dependent on a grant of $2 million from the state government. Estimates of the cost of the 3 options presented to council on the 19th of December and repeated in tonight's paper were labelled indicative, and council decided to further assess options 2 and 3. As stated in December and repeated in tonight's late item, this decision was made in the knowledge that the grant alone was not adequate to fund the whole range of associated works, and it was agreed to be better to make a once and forever investment in a high-quality multi-purpose field, and then tackle the associated work as funds became available, either from council or from future grants. Council has now completed a due diligence process and concluded that redevelopment is cost prohibitive, but no costings are presented to back up this opinion. In spite of the lack of cost estimates, the only reason given in the paper this evening is that option 3 is cost prohibitive, without any evidence. Now, this financial argument might once have seemed acceptable, but let's compare it to council's recent decision to fund construction of the Baronia Park Sport and Community Facility. At the same meeting on the 19th of December, and having given just 4 days' notice, council considered a proposal to contribute $1 million to that project. Then, at the last minute, increased this to $1.735 million to ensure the project was fully funded. In my opinion, if council can afford to supplement grant funding of a project to assist sport at Baronia Park, then it can afford to supplement grant funding of a project to assist sport at Gladesville Reserve. And I ask you to reject the recommendation before you tonight and continue to investigate options 2 and 3.
Thank you, Dr. Sharp. Any questions, councillors? Not. Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Dr. Sharp, for your address. Would you accept that it would be appropriate if it were to turn out that one of the other options is superior to the options, which would in fact free up other funds for other work around the reserve?
Well, we don't have that evidence in front of us, so I
I
can't
do.
comment on that.
I do.
Not on the paper.
Is there a report we missed? Sorry.
Councillors, any other questions of Dr. Sharp? If not, thank you, Dr. Sharp.
Thank you.
Councillors, there's a motion on the floor. Move, councillor. Oh,
A question.
Yes.
Before,
yes.
or should I wait till it's been moved?
No, you can ask a question.
Thank you. Am I correct? There was some grant funding recently received.
Yes,
for
there
the
was.
Lighting of that field to
Correct.
the tune of $260,000.
$260,000.
So we do have 260,000 that's already gone towards the lighting of the field. Thank you.
Councillors, there's a motion on the paper. Have we got a mover? Moved, councillor Vergara, seconded, councillor Prieston. Councillor Vergara? Anyone wish to speak to the motion?
I will just note that the reporting officer for this paper is the general manager.
Yes.
The general manager is a man of considerable experience in this area, and I know him to be a man of integrity. On that basis, I'm happy to support this motion.
Thank you, councillor. Any speakers against the motion? Councillor Sanderson.
Mr. Mayor, I've got a very small amendment again.
Yes.
Read that be that the tender documents separate the contract for the provisions or provision of design.
Sorry,
and
councillor,
services
that doesn't sound that minor. Can I just ask that we pull up the motion to hear the amendment?
from the contract.
Sorry, council, hold on one moment.
Okay,
We'll-
tear it off.
yeah, if you could, that would be helpful. Thank you, councillor.
Thank you, councillor Sanderson.
The wordings.
Mr. Mayor, could I
Yes.
just
General manager.
just make a couple of comments here? So first of all, I might work backwards actually. So in the original scope, there was always an intent to spend some money on lighting out of that $2 million. But now we don't need to do that because we've been successful in getting a grant, which is a huge plus. And can I just, I don't want to over science this, but there is no decisions here. All we're doing is running a tender process so that we actually will be armed with real figures to bring back to council for your decision and consideration. So all we're asking for is to go out and get an additional option in replacement of the higher scaled option, because the reality is it will be cost prohibitive. So it's a fruitless exercise going through that. Yep. And I've been asked this on multiple occasions by the community, and that is, what else are you going to do in regards to other improvements other than the field? And the answer is, until we actually know the real number, that's pretty hard to deal with. So I am absolutely convinced that these are the right two options for us to go to market and get prices on and get real figures and real facts of how they're going to intend to do it from a design point of view. It's an appropriate way to handle it. It's nothing more, nothing less than that.
Thank you, General Manager. Councillor Sanderson, do you still wish to move your amendment?
So that,
Yes. Would you like to read it?
yes, before I do, I'll just thank the General Manager for his comments. I agree with every word that you just said in that address. Yeah, so what I would like to do is insert after 2, so I should have said, or insert at 2, so 2 will move to 3. That the tender documents separate the contract for provision of design services from the contract for.
Sorry, councillor, you said that there's a number 3 there.
No, well, the current number 2 will move to 3.
There is no 2.
Oh, okay.
The 2, the 2 in the, so you're amending the second.
The recommendation I've got in front of me.
Yes.
It's got, current number 2 says.
Okay,
the
so
further report be booked back to council.
Yep.
Summarising 10 responses and recommendations.
Excuse me.
So what I'm saying is, insert
Councillor
at 2.
That's what you gave us there. There you go.
So you're saying that you're inserting 2 and then you want number 2 in the current
number
motion to
3.
become 3.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. Sorry, that was unclear in the note you passed up.
Okay. Sorry, I did this.
That's okay.
I did this at the last minute before I left for the meeting. Which is probably was about 5 minutes later than I normally do. So insert at 2, to become 3. The tender document separate the contract for the provision of design services from the contract for construction services.
Thank you, councillor. That's your amendment. Is there a seconder? Councillor Williams. Councillor, before you speak to that motion, can I understand? Maybe you'll get to this in. I'll let you get to it in your notes, but I guess I'd like to get to the crux of why you want to separate those 2 out.
Well,
It does seem a little counterintuitive, but I'll let you speak to your motion, your amendment. Sorry.
yeah, look, there are very strong reasons for this. I was referred, unfortunately not until today, to some documents that Hunter Water has published. There are actually 7 documents. They're entitled Best Practice Sporting Fields. Unfortunately, I don't know if it was me, or I expect you're probably protected so that you can't download them electronically. So what I've done is downloaded Book 3, Soils and Turf, Book 3, Drainage, and Book 5, Planning, which cover a lot of relevant topics. This material was only published in the later part of 2022, which is part of the reason I've just come across it. Now, they advocate a lot of things. And one of the things they very strongly advocate, if you read in particular the planning section of these booklets, and I agree, I admit that I haven't had time to read every word of these in detail, but looking at them, there is a very strong recommendation that you don't have a situation where you let a contract that is purely for, or sorry, that encompasses construction, including design. The obvious immediate trap there is that if you in a competitive process, then there is an incentive for the design to potentially cut corners to get a better price. And the design is just, when you read all these documents, the design is just so critically important. There are all sorts of things that can go wrong. One of the things that has happened where fields have already got generally the slip sand drainage type, is that the header at the bottom is too low capacity, and that restricts the flow. The other thing that comes out of these documents, and I fully agree with the General Manager, Council probably made the wrong choice back on the 19th of December, in that the slip flow is what is used in Australia. People I spoke to about this did make the comment that the people who prepared our needs analysis are planners. They're not experts in turf, and they're not experts in drainage. I think it's important, though, at this critical stage in this project, that we make all the right choices. If we make a wrong choice here, or making a good choice now, will deliver an absolutely first-class outcome. Making a poor choice here will potentially have a project that will be a real dud, and that has happened in many occasions, and has been explained to me on occasions that in fact on occasions has become a reason to argue for synthetic turf. They get a new natural turf field, it fails, and then that's the argument for synthetic turf. There's also a lot of good material here in terms of the relative costing for different types of field. And synthetic turf is simply out of the question for us. It's deeply regrettable as a council that we waited for almost 2 years after this matter was first brought up for it to return to council, and for me to move it or get a foreshadowed motion up, which set this up for proper investigation as to what the final outcome should, or the final result should be. We haven't quite finished there. The choices that need to be made over the next few weeks are absolutely critical. We must get the engineering design right. It's important that is separated from the construction phase, and that's all I'm asking for. The General Manager may have had in mind to do that anyway.
We've already done it, Councillor Sanderson.
Well, if you've already done it, I commend the motion to congratulate you.
Yeah, so sorry, councillors, the great joys of technology. So I knew this was going to be the answer, but we've already engaged consultants to do the design process, which obviously will form the basis of going out in the tender documents for construction. So we've already separated. Got experts who have done design.
With that in mind, councillor, are you happy to, given that process has been undertaken, that kind of nullifies your motion because the contract for design services is already been done?
Yeah,
Yep, so we'll go back to the original motion if you're.
Assurance, but it's so
Yes.
critical that
Yes.
does happen.
Yep.
I'm pleased to have the
Yep.
opportunity to emphasise that at this meeting.
We go back to the original motion, which is moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Well, just
Councillor.
briefly,
Yes,
To say,
councillor
and I promise it will
Crassoy.
be briefly to say that this sort of validates councillor Vigara's comment that we're in the hands of a general manager who knows this sport and knows this subject very well, and to trust him and be able to ask those questions of him without having had to have gone through that whole need for those motions would have actually just circumvented all of this. So so thank you.
Thank you, councillor Crassoy. Any other discussion for councillor Sanderson?
Yes. No, I haven't. I spoke to my amendment, which I've now withdrawn. Look, there is just so much valuable information in these books. I think it would be foolhardy to proceed with the project. A lot of this is relatively new, being published in dates like August 2022 and so on. And I think it's vitally important. So I'm very happy to provide all of these Mr. General Manager and the Director, because I'll even leave these papers behind tonight because I have no immediate use for them and just clutter up my office.
We'll take them as tabled.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thanks for that, Councillor Sanderson. Just so you know as well, that the project manager, who is excellent, what he does is watching the meeting. So he would have heard all those comments anyway.
Councillors, any other discussion for the motion, against the motion? Right of reply, councillor Vigara? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. I now have a motion in the paper to move into committee of the whole. Councillor Vigara moved, seconded councillor Crassoy. Any speakers for? Against? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? I'll do that again. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you to those in the gallery. To vacate now. We'll turn off the live stream.